Rachel Maddow did a great story last night contrasting General Austin, the Secretary of Defense Austin, against Hegseth. And, the MAGA loves to talk. Anytime MAGA see a woman in a position or a person of color in position, whatever, they always jump on the DEI bandwagon. Makes no sense. I've lived it. One of the reasons I wrote my latest book, guess what it is? Tribulations of an Afro-Latino Caribbean Man, is because I got tired of folks actually believing that somehow people of color get breaks, that DEI give people of color breaks. It's a joke. It's ridiculous. In fact, the people that get the most benefits out of DEI programs are white women. And I don't have a problem with that. There are more white women in the country than anything else. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm saying those people who criticize DEI always do it under the assumption that Black people, Latinos, and others are the ones who are recipients of most of DEI. It's not the case. But, as I always say, and I mentioned this in my book as well, when I was growing up and we lived on the Canal Zone in an apartheid section of the Canal Zone, right? The United States brought apartheid to Panama. The Panamanians who worked for the Americans in the Canal Zone in Panama lived in a state of apartheid. Because of the conditions in that area, my parents would always tell me, you have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And I've told you guys that before. And I want to show you the corollary of this. Because if you look at the life of Secretary of Defense Austin versus the new Secretary of Defense, tell me how anyone could call Austin DEI and not call Hegseth somebody that's way out of his league, but because of who he is, was able to get that job. Check this out and then we'll take it on the other side.
He played rugby and he ran track at West Point. He also did 2 master's degrees and got an MBA on top of that. Rifle platoon leader, scout platoon leader, then company executive officer, battalion commander, and then brigade commander in the 82nd Airborne. He helped lead the initial invasion of Baghdad in March 2003. He rolled his mechanized division straight from the Kuwait border overland right into the center of Baghdad, won a Silver Star for his valor in that operation. Then to Afghanistan, where he led the 10th Mountain Division. Then he became chief of staff at CENTCOM. Then he was the top U.S. commander in the Iraq War, in the whole war. He was actually the one who wound down U.S. forces at the end of the Iraq War. He was then named vice chief of staff of the United States Army. Then he went back to CENTCOM, this time as commander of CENTCOM. Then he built and led the force that waged the war against ISIS. And then, and only then, was he considered for the really big job, Secretary of Defense. And that is the man who just left office as Secretary of Defense. The man who just arrived to take his job, he was a platoon leader in the National Guard, but now he too is Secretary of Defense. Both of them, obviously, honorable records of service. Not equivalent, though, I think you'd say, in terms of demonstrated leadership, experience, complex organizational management experience in particular. I mean, 4-star General Lloyd Austin had led like a whole war or 2. And he had been chief of staff and then commander at CENTCOM just before being named as defense secretary. CENTCOM is the part of the U.S. military that has as its area of responsibility the Middle East and Central Asia and South Asia. That was what he was in charge of. I mean, that was his experience heading in to become defense secretary. That's who has just left as defense secretary. The guy who has just arrived, well, just before he was named as defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, he led 1/3 of the famous Curvy Couch on the Fox and Friends Fox News Channel weekend show. I have to say, it may be that he led 1/4 of the couch, not 1/3. I'm not totally sure how many hosts they have, but we could only find these pictures of him sharing with 2, so maybe he held down 1/3. That said, prior to his time at the Fox News Channel, Mr. Hegseth also ran into the ground two small right-wing veterans groups amid allegations, which he denies, of wild financial mismanagement, nepotism, sexual harassment, public drunkenness, and even drinking on the job. For one of those organizations, an independent forensic accountant found evidence of gross financial mismanagement while Pete Hegseth was administering that organization. And so then they made him Secretary of Defense. Two guys, same job.
Anyway, first of all, I want to mention Colton said something that's very important. Very, very important. And let me put this out here. He said, don't forget, let me find Colton's message because I said I wanted to make sure and feature it. He says, don't forget the mistaken assumption that people who benefit from DEI are unqualified. It's not true. The people who benefit from DEI are qualified. The only reason you have folks doing DEI is because basically these people were overlooked. That's why even when we speak about things like when they talk about people that are injured or people that have these different deficiencies, people would just not even give them a chance to see if they can do the work, but actually they can do the work. But anyway, going back to the video that I just played, the difference between Defense Secretary Austin and Defense Secretary Hegseth is ridiculous to have some sort of comparison between these two. One is less than a lightweight. I mean, everybody wants to say thank you for your service. You know, he served in the National Guard. By the way, I haven't served, but I respect the service people, and I make sure that the policies that I support ensure that they get what they deserve for having served. But Hegseth, look, let's be clear here. Hegseth is nowhere close to having the dignity of Austin, the morality of Austin. Yet, Austin has to sit back and be treated as if he has something to be concerned about, somehow he's a DEI hire. When a guy like Hegseth gets a job, that is the heights of unqualification. Gets a job? Let's be real, folks.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.